All right, so today we're going to dive deep into worldviews.
Okay.
Those kind of like invisible frameworks that really shape how we see everything.
Yeah.
And we're going to unpack this lecture by Dr. Patrick Briney,
Okay.
who argues that getting these worldviews is like the secret to understanding like
Right.
why we disagree so passionately about pretty much everything.
Yeah, it's funny because what I found so interesting about how Dr. Briney starts is he starts with this observation, and I think we've all kind of experienced this in our own lives.
Uh-huh.
You ever notice how someone's stance on one issue,
Yeah.
like, say, environmental regulations,
Yeah,
often lines up with their opinions on something
totally.
like totally different, like education reform?
It's true.
It's like,
Yeah, it's like you can almost predict where someone stands on a whole bunch of issues if you just know where they stand on a couple.
exactly. And Dr. Briney says this predictability is not random.
Right.
It's because all these different issues are stemming from a much deeper,
Right.
more fundamental set of beliefs.
Interesting.
Their worldview.
So define worldview, because I think that's something that maybe people throw out, but have never really sat and thought about.
Yeah, so he defines it as this core system of beliefs and values that acts like a lens,
Okay.
and it filters how we interpret the world around us and our place in it.
So it's not just like our opinions about certain things.
Right.
It's like the why behind the opinion. Like,
Yes.
we can all agree that traffic is bad,
Yes.
but it's like, why do you think traffic is bad? And like, what's the solution?
Absolutely.
Do we need more public transportation?
Exactly.
Do we need
That's
less
right.
people on the roads?
Then understanding that why is so crucial, especially
Yeah.
when we're disagreeing with people.
Totally.
It's like we're speaking two different languages
Yes.
when we actually have different worldviews.
It's so true. And it's not even about being right.
Right.
It's just that you're coming from such a different set of assumptions
Exactly.
about how the world works.
Totally.
And this is interesting to me because he kind of breaks it down, or maybe I'm oversimplifying it,
Yeah.
but he seems to say that there's like two
Yeah.
big worldviews.
Yeah. So he simplifies it by saying there's two fundamental worldviews,
Okay.
and that these are the two that he sees as the most influential.
What are they?
So there's the biblical worldview and the humanistic worldview.
So break those down, because I feel like most people haven't even gone this far in their brains
Most definitely not.
to think about these two things.
Yeah. So the biblical worldview,
Yeah.
unsurprisingly,
Yeah.
finds its authority in God and his word, the Bible,
Okay.
and views the Bible as the ultimate truth.
Uh-huh.
That speaks to all areas of life, from how we got here to like the meaning of life.
So God's like the ultimate authority figure,
Yes,
and the Bible's like his book of rules.
precisely.
Okay.
And so that's a stark contrast to the humanistic worldview.
Okay.
Humanism puts human reason and experience
Okay.
front and center.
So we're in charge of our own destiny kind of thing.
Yeah, I might say that like, okay, yeah, maybe there's a God,
Right.
but they wouldn't say that there's a specific religious text
That's the end all be all.
that we need to follow.
Right.
It's less about this divine plan that's already been ordained
Yeah.
and more about us figuring it out.
Interesting.
yeah.
So like creation versus evolution is a great example
Exactly.
of these two different sides.
And how these two different approaches
Yeah.
can lead to drastically different conclusions.
Totally. And then what about, he talks about these grab bag worldviews.
Yeah.
What is that?
So he uses that term to describe people who kind of pull a little bit from both.
Oh, like they can't decide.
They make their own belief system.
Okay. So they're the ones that are like, I don't know, I kind of like this and I kind of like this.
They're trying to pick and choose
Okay.
what sounds good to them,
Interesting.
but not realizing that there's some fundamental differences
Oh.
between these two worldviews.
Got it.
And that can lead to inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Especially when you're facing a moral dilemma
Right.
or trying to make sense of a very complex issue.
It's like having a car with parts from everywhere.
Yeah.
Like it might look okay,
Right.
but it's not going to run very well.
And they might not even realize why it's not running very well.
Interesting.
And his point is these grab bag worldviews, they might feel comfortable.
Right.
They might feel personally appealing,
Uh-huh.
but they can lead to a lot of inconsistencies,
Right.
especially when we're grappling with moral dilemmas or we're trying to make sense
Right.
of really complicated issues.
Like it makes you think about how easy it is to get stuck in an echo chamber these days.
Oh, absolutely.
Where you're just surrounded by people who believe the exact same thing.
And Dr. Briney would say that those echo chambers,
Yeah.
they're often reinforced by whatever worldview we've chosen for ourselves,
Right.
because
Yeah.
we're going to naturally gravitate towards
Right.
information.
Right.
And people who align with those assumptions we already have.
Like we're naturally drawn to a certain news source.
Exactly.
Because it reinforces what we already believe.
And that circles back to his whole point.
Right.
Which is these differences in worldviews.
They're not just like philosophical debates.
Oh,
they
yeah.
actually impact our lives.
Exactly.
And then he goes on to talk about this crack in the Christian armor.
Yes.
So what is he talking about there?
So he's saying that a lot of Christians have become complacent.
Okay.
And they're relying just on faith.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not developing the intellectual tools to really defend their beliefs.
So explain what he means by apologetics.
Yeah, so that word apologetics, it throws people off.
It sounds like you're apologizing for your faith.
Right, it's not that at all.
Okay.
It's actually a Greek word, apologia, which means to give a defense.
Okay.
So Christian apologetics is really about giving a reasoned explanation.
So backing up what you believe with actual facts and logic.
Yes, and engaging with those really tough questions.
So it's not just like, I believe it because I believe it.
Right.
It's like, I believe it because of this and this and this.
That I can explain it to you.
Okay.
Even if you don't already agree with me.
Gotcha.
And he argues that that is so important in the world today.
Interesting.
Especially when Christianity is pushed aside as irrational or outdated or even harmful.
And he uses this phrase, trading an eternity of convenience for a moment of convenience.
Yes. Isn't that a good one?
It's like, what does that mean?
What do you think it means?
I don't know. It's like we're getting too comfortable in our ways, and we're not thinking about
the bigger picture.
The bigger picture.
And we're so focused on our own immediate desires and needs that we forget what truly matters.
Yeah.
It's a very real danger.
Yeah, it's like we're so focused on the here and now and just like getting what we want and being comfortable.
Right, and we kind of lose sight of those bigger questions. Like, what's the meaning of life?
Totally.
Why are we here? What's the point of all this?
And you know what made me think about that part where he talks about being unequally yoked? And he's talking about relationships.
Yes.
But it's like choosing a worldview affects all your relationships.
Exactly.
How you approach your work, how you...
Your community even. Like how you view the planet.
Yes, exactly. And it's like, it's a lot to think about.
It is.
So like, where do we even begin?
It's a lot to digest, that's for sure. But I think that's why he's so passionate about apologetics.
Yeah.
It's about being able to articulate your beliefs clearly and with compassion.
And that goes back to like his initial thing. Like, if you can understand someone's worldview, then you can understand why they say the things they do.
Absolutely.
And it makes those conversations a little bit easier to have.
For sure.
Well, on that note, we'll leave you to ponder this, what makes up your worldview.
Ooh, good one.
And how is that affecting your life?
So much to think about.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.